Hello everyone, welcome back on another video with Linksy. Today we're gonna try a second attempt at the full faction tier list of Warhammer 2, Total War Warhammer 2. We are going to take it from the perspective of faction strength and starting position. So we're gonna look at the start, we're gonna look at how and what can make a campaign really hard. So we're not really looking at endgame, we're not looking at the potential, because this will be a very different faction guideline, but rather we're looking at, for beginners, for new people, what they should be expecting with each different faction, each different legendary lord. I also understand that there are different legendary lords. For example, with Reichland you start with either Volkmar or the good old Emperor Karl Franz. With the Chaos and with Beastmen you have three different legendary lords each and start different starting positions. So we have to keep that in mind while we're going at this. With that said, let's just get started. The first one is I'm going to go faction by faction according to the way that they're presented in the game. So I'll be switching from the game to the faction tier list periodically. The first thing is, with Tehenhauin is that these are the High Elves. We know the High Elves are a ridiculously strong faction, and especially with Tyrion, you start as the faction leader of the High Elves. You start with a really strong position, which is a Lothern, which is a city you don't need to build walls for, so it's easier to defend. All you need to do is just upgrade it, and that makes it easier in terms of making sure you're safe and you can be a bit more aggressive with Tyrion himself. As well as that, the High Elves have a ridiculous economy that starts off really early as turn 15-20 starts kicking off. So I would say it's an S tier faction. Most of the High Elves are, not all of them of course, because some of them start in really wacky positions. And with that said, we'll now go to Teclis. Teclis himself is also a High Elf. The main problem, and this is where it changes completely, is that Teclis starts in the Lustria Super Bowl, starts at the edge of it, yes, but still starts surrounded by, you have Luther Harkon, you have the Tentacle Monster, also known as Lokir Felhart, and you also have the Count Noctilus in the sea that can be coming at you at any moment in time. If you manage to survive those, then you have to deal with very angry lizards, Skaven, and a horde of very pissed off Empire people who have been getting stung by everything in the forest as well. So Teclis for me would be a C tier start. B or C tier, because it's still the High Elves, it's still a rather strong faction. You start on an island, so relatively easy to defend. Teclis himself is a very, very strong legendary lord. I will actually put it in a B tier, because thinking about it, if you manage to level up Teclis, you're going to be in a decent position. Teclis can wipe out armies with magic, even though he's gotten nerfs recently, especially with the Grom and the Punch DLC, with the introduction of Arcane Phoenixes. He did get a small buff with them, but then he lost some magical buffs he had previously. Again, keep in mind, I don't think I made it clear, this is for the Mortal Empires, hence why there are all the factions here. If this does really well, I'll do one for the Vortex campaign as well. Again, I am by no means an expert, I must say it, and I will reiterate it, but this is my experience after playing almost 1,000 hours of the game, and having spoken and be part of the community for so long. Okay, the next one will be Avalorn, and Avalorn is beyond an S tier. If anyone has been following my current campaign at the moment with Avalorn, she is just a beast. Alariel, the Ever Queen, is mental. By turn 34, we confederated Tyrion, and we're talking on legendary difficulty here. We have confederated Tyrion. We've taken most of the other High Elves on, either killed them or they became part of us. We owned most of Lustria now by under turn 100, and we've beaten back Nagaronda and everyone else who tried to attack us with relative ease. And with that said, I think she is quite an S tier. It's self-explanatory. Her economy is very good, very, very defensible position. Why turn 10 you could be already taking like 6 or 7 settlements, as well as having a really strong army of sisters. You can get sisters at tier 3, so from every single place, really early on in the campaign, you're going to be doing very well with regards to that. After that, I believe it is Altarion. Yes, it is Altarion. And Altarion is... Where is he? Oh boy. I swear I organized them, and then they kind of got dismantled a bit. Where is he? There he is. Altarion I would put into an A. Okay? Why? Because Altarion is quite interesting. Altarion starts in 2 positions at the same time. You start in the Badlands with the main army. Altarion himself is there. And you start with a smaller army and the settlement in Toria Veres. Having the settlement of your Veres is really useful because you have a settlement on Alt 1. And again, if you want to have a relatively good time and easy time with him, you just disband your army and you go to Alt 1. It takes you a turn or 2 longer, but eventually you will get there, and you'll get the ball rolling as well. But the problem is that you do start with your special units at the start in an Arcane Phoenix as well in the Badlands, and the Badlands is just a nightmare of orcs that all want to kill you. So it's not necessarily an S tier start, but I would say an A. Low A, high B. Still better than Teclis because, frankly, because why do you want to be in the last year Super Bowl? But still a really, really strong start, and a really, really easy time to set up. Again, I say easy, you still need to make some good decisions, otherwise you can lose it. You know what? Teclis gets demoted to C and Altarion gets demoted to a B. I think that's ideal in the current situation to do so. And finally, with the High Elves, I believe I did not skip anyone. Yes, I did not. We do have Imric, and I put Imric in a D. He's very close to an E, but I would say a D because he's still High Elves. He's still very strong. He has a very strong, very strong potential. But the problem is, where he starts, he has no money. Where he starts, he's surrounded by Dark Elves. He's surrounded by Skaven, angry Dwarfs, angry Orcs, and angry Tomb Kings. You have no opportunity to trade with anyone. You have no opportunity to do anything. The reason I put him as a D, not lower, which to be honest, totally deserved, is that you can confederate with the Kalendor, and my cat decided to get underneath the monitor, and now it's crushing me because he got stuck. There you go. Because you can confederate with Kalendor 20 turns or so, 30 turns into the game, and then somehow try to establish yourself next to a very pissed off Tyrion. Yeah, I think that would be best in this relation. The next faction we will talk about, I'm making sure I'm not skipping anyone. No, I have. I've skipped Alitenar. I skipped Alitenar. Alifenar, sorry. And Alifenar is, in my opinion, another B faction. You start not off the coast of Alt 1. How could I skip him? I knew I was skipping someone. You start off the coast of Alt 1. You do not have the same benefits of being in Alt 1, but at the same time is very close and you have a rather defensible settlement. The main problem with him is you have Skaven to the north and you have Marathi to your west. And Marathi is ridiculously strong early game. We've seen what she does to pretty much the High Elves. The first invasion comes from her, and then the second invasion comes from Malekith. And usually her invasion leaves Tyrion so weak, and the other faction is so weak that there's nothing that they can do to stop Malekith till the end game when they, spiral of control. Definitely a strong faction. You do get the ability to ambush. as a normal attack, which makes the High Elves, this specific High Elves Nagarite, so strong. And Elifenar himself is a very strong legendary lord. He does give incredible bonuses and buffs. I believe he has a +4 public order to every place in your empire, so it's going to be really good. Now, moving on to the lizards, and lizards we start with Haxolotl. Haxolotl is a rather fantastic faction to play with, really interesting, but goddamn it's difficult. Especially if you want to play in the harder difficulties, it is an absolute nightmare. You have Skegi, you have Empire colonies, you have Skaven, you have Marathi, everything is trying to kill you. You have Vampire Coast, everyone is trying to kill you. It is an absolute nightmare. You do start with one of the richest, if not the richest, regions in the entire game, Isthmus of Lustria, I believe it is called. It is ridiculously good if you manage to capture everything, but in the first 5 turns, you need to have wiped out Skegi and gotten the Empire colony under control. And that is really, really difficult. I cannot stress how difficult it is. For someone that's very experienced, you can do it relatively easily, but for a mid-level player, it does get really stressful. On legendary and very hard, especially, of course, hard difficulty and normal difficulty, it should be relatively easy, but even then, newer players, you're gonna find a lot of trouble with him. Not going to put him D or E because it's lizards and it's Mazdamundi, and Mazdamundi is ridiculously powerful in his abilities. After Mazdamundi, we get Krogar, and Krogar is an A tier. Why is he an A tier? Honestly, he could be an S tier, but he doesn't have that many faction-wide buffs as himself compared to what Tyrion and Alariel have, so he will not get to the S tier. A tier because he starts in the corner of a map. He has one enemy to fight. One. Right? I mean, theoretically speaking, you have 2, but Malus will be busy with dealing with Clan Eshin. Krogar, you just need to protect your corner and expand slowly. The main issue is that if you expand too slowly, you're going to get hammed in by Clan Moors. So what you need to do is defeat the Court of Lebaris really, really quickly, then expand and take out Clan Moors while Clan Moors is weak in the early game after fighting against the orcs. If you do that within the first 50 to 100 turns, you are in a good place. Then you will fight Tomb Kings, and lizards really love munching on their bones. Himself, Krogar, is really strong character, does incredible amounts of damage. So yeah, I would say an A tier. And then, of course, you have the struggle of the Lizardmen economy being relatively weak. It's a slow burning economy, but you'll do absolutely fine. Get some Slans of Life and get yourself some Stegadons, and you're gonna be having a good time. And now, Tic-Tac-Toe. Tic-Tac-Toe is an interesting character. You start in the, not in the Lustrian Super Bowl, but you start in the Super Bowl of sense. You have Dwarfs, which you can trade with relatively early on. Empire, which don't like you. And Tomb Kings, which don't like anything that has life in it. You do also have the problem that they're the Crusaders of Bretonnia. You have Repuns and all the other errantry factions. So you're set into a place where I would say you're similar to Teclis and Mazdamundi. You are in a relatively good place. You have potential, but your faction is not that strong because his main strength is the flying Ripidactyls and Tarragons, which in my humble opinion are trash. With him, they're okay. He gives them incredible buffs. But still, when it's coming in against a number of other units, they're not going to do that well. They're going to really struggle, and you're going to need a lot of micro, you're going to need a lot of sneaky tactics, and I would rather just go straight on with a Slagon and Doom stack. But yeah, it's definitely fun to play, not the most ideal situation to start off with. Now, I think we're going to have our first E faction, and that is Nekai. Nekai starts in Albion, he gets lost, you are a horde faction, you have no economy to speak of, your army is shit. It is absolute trash. You need to get to tier 3 as fast as possible. You need to build as many Kroxigors as possible, and that is the only way you can get something going. And trust me, it is a difficult task what you have to do with him. He's in a really bad place. You start in Albion, which is literally Norsca. You're frozen wasteland. It's nothing good. Your only option is to go down, defeat Bretonnia, expand in Lyonesse, because then you can fight the Red Duke, get to tier 3 there. But even then, you need to have a you have a plan where to go. And the campaign itself is just an absolute nightmare. That is just one of the hardest campaigns I've ever played in this game. It is doable. I did spend like 6 hours rampaging with a horde of Kroxigors, but yeah, it is, wow, it is difficult. So yeah, that is an E faction. And then finally Gorok. And Gorok, I would put him A or B. I'm putting him in a B tier faction as a starting faction for two main reasons. You have an incredible economy because you just start with gold, and that makes a difference. Gorok starts with Lord Croak as well. And you're starting off really good when you have gold and Lord Croak straight off the bat. Lord Croak will wipe off all the Skaven which you will face, and you'll be facing Lord Croak the first thing. But keep in mind, you are in the Lustria Super Bowl. You have the purple dinos on one side, you have the dwarfs next to them. On top of you have more Skaven. There are angrier lizards than you. There is Tehenhauin. There are Vampire Coast. There are Dark Elves and High Elves. There is everything, and then on top of that there is the Hans Marshal. You're not going to be having a good time, right? You're not going to be having a good time with them. But in the first few turns, if you manage to take Oxalatl, you're going to be okay. You're going to survive. You're going to get your back to the wall, form staunch line of dead bodies, and then trample over everything with your Staggered on Doomstack once you get it. I do enjoy a campaign with Gorok. It is fun. It is a blast, and highly recommended. But I wouldn't say he is a top tier starting position due to the situation he finds himself in. The Lustria Super Bowl is such a meme at this point. It is so difficult because the aggressiveness of the AI keeps going up and up and up. It's like the end times are approaching. And I think I've skipped a singular lizard. Have I skipped a lizard? I do not believe I did. But I'm going to check. Tehenhauin, Krogar, Tic-Tac-Toe, Nekai, and Gorok. And that means the next person is actually one of my favorites, Malekith. And he also gets an S start because of various reasons. But the first one is you have Malekith starting off with a incredible faction. Okay? You start off with the Dark Elves. They have a really strong economy, one of the strongest in the game. You start off in a corner of the map. So those are two bonuses. You have some of the strongest early game units, which are the Dark Shards with spears, with shields. They're going to do so much damage. Their armor piercing is insane. Their rate of fire is absolutely crazy. They tank a lot of damage. So they're really, really good units. You start with the Fire Mage. Everything is going right for you. And it's not saying it's going to be the easiest campaign, especially with the introduction of Chaos. But you should be able to be in a really good place by turn 90 where you don't need to worry too much about Chaos. If you're prepared, you're fine. And yeah, as your faction, he's just really strong. Just plain and simple. Cannot say the same for his lover, his mother, the Cult of Pleasure with Marathi. I would say she's a C tier faction. As strong as she is, as powerful as she is, you start with Skaven, Negarites, and Hexalatl close by, and they all dislike you, to put it mildly. And if you manage to survive that, then you're going to see an angry Tyrion descending on you with his sword drawn out. That sounded wrong. So yeah, it's not going to be the easiest campaign. Still, very strong faction, very strong campaign mechanics, and you have a strong economy. So you're going to hopefully be fine. But I would say you're in the same as Teclis, where you find yourself in a place you shouldn't really be in. After that, we will speak about Crone Hellebron, and I will put her in a high B, low A. I would say she's a very low A, but an A. Crone Hellebron is really strong because it finds yourself in the top of the map. You just have to expand very slowly around you, taking out other Dark Elves. So it's not that difficult per se. There is a little bit of Norskins that you have to take out, but they're not really that difficult. And you should be able to beat up Malekith in time before he explodes and grows really strong. So once you do that, then you deal with the Skaven, you deal with Clan Rictus, and you should be in a really good place where you can just expand. Strong economy, strong-ish start, but really good is the positioning on the campaign map is really, really good. Cannot say the same about the next guy. The next guy is one and the only, where is he? Tentacle Monster, where are you? There he is. I would say he is in the same tier as Imric. You are starting in a small tier settlement and no walls, no nothing. You start with buffs to Corsair, Black Ark Corsairs with hand bows. Lockyer is very strong in combat, an incredible duelist. Really shit faction though. As in, really shit starting position. Faction is alright, but really shit starting position. You are going to be dealing with Lord's Croak really early on. You're going to be dealing with Teclis, and if you survive that, you have Gorok, you have Vampire Coast. Again, lost your Super Bowl, and you're not really prepared to deal with any of it. It is not an easy campaign. It is better than Imric, way better than Imric. Even though I put them in the same list, still better than Imric. Maybe I should put Imric down in tier E, to be honest. We'll see later on, as it's going to be interesting to see that. But yeah, Lockyer is something, I must say. It's definitely something. And it's not the easiest campaign, let's put it that way. But after Lockyer, what do we have? Oh, boom. 1 second. And after Lockyer, we get, of course, I forgot about him. How could I forget about him? After Lockyer, we get Malus Darkblade, which I would say is also recently placed in an S tier campaign status. You're gonna be like, what? Well, especially with Mercy's strategy to confederate Nagaroth on turn 2, and having Hagreef and having Malus all the way down in the Dragon Isles, I would definitely say that he is a S tier faction. Why? You confederate Malekith, okay? You have Malus as a one man, one army destroyer of worlds, something like 120% ward save, like immortal. You have really fun campaign mechanic, you have really good economy, you start essentially in a corner with more cities than Malekith himself. So yeah, I would say he's a very strong S. I would really recommend, if you want to see Mercy's strategy, if I remember, I'll put a link in the description below. It's an absolute beast of a strategy, and it does really, really well. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. The guy is bloody amazing. With that said, the next is Quick Hat Taker. One of my favorite Skaven. Considering everything, he's definitely one of my favorite Skaven. I would say he is a B tier starting position. Now, keep in mind that he is ridiculously powerful, but he doesn't get that many buffs to his faction compared with the other Skaven. He does get a relatively good position because it's very easily defendable, and by turn 15 you can have 2 tier 4 settlements. Turn 12 actually, I think. or 13, something like some very early on. You have 2 tier 4 settlements, and that's going to really help your economy. You're going to have gold as well, and you can easily wipe out the lizards and Court of Libaras by turn 30, 40, and at that point you can then start expanding everywhere else. So Queek is a really fun character to play because of that. The next after Queek is, I believe, Lord's Croaky Boy. No, Lord's Croak, whereas he is another C faction. On Mortal Empires, it's a bit easier than Vortex Campaign. Vortex Campaign, he would definitely be an E, because holy hell. But you do start at the bottom of the map. You do start in the last year Super Bowl, which puts you down to C. Really strong faction, really strong bonuses, especially with the Plague mechanic. But you're going to struggle to fight everyone else. We've already discussed this a million times over. Lustria is not a fun place to be. Everyone wants to be there. You don't want to be there. It's like Malaga or Spain or Barcelona, the party cities. You don't want to be there when everyone's there. It's Jesus Christ. It is not fun. But do you know what's fun? Do you know who is fun? He is the one. He is the only. He is the absolute beast. He is Cleanse Crier. And boys and girls, he is an A faction. Not an S, unfortunately. He is not exceptionally good where he starts, but goddamn, he starts in a relatively decent position. You can take out Margritta very early on. You can have a tier 4 Skaven Blight. You have Skaven Blight. You have Skaven Blight. If Skaven Blight is the Skaven, it's an absolute beast. It is a really strong faction. You get the weapons teams. You get the workshop. You get the Doom Rocket. You get all of these amazing cool tools to play with. You're not an S faction because you are still very close to the Empire and all the other things that want to kill you. Relative defensible position. You should be able to hold out against anything, honestly. And if you expand into Bretonnia and then charge into the Empire and blow it all to shit, you are going to be really good with Ikit Claw. He's my babe. He's my favorite. He is the best. Cannot say much of the same about the next one. Next one is Clan Rictus, and I'm just putting him in D faction. They're strong as a faction because he's a strong combatant and nice ambushing mechanic, but really and truly does not add anything to the faction. And of course, I'm talking about good old Tretch Craventail. He is not fun to play with, definitely. Again, we're talking legendary and very hard conditions. In easier difficulties, he could be okay, but not a fun campaign to play with. So I'd really recommend something else, such as Clanation. Clanation S tier, straight off the bat. You start again when you start in a corner of the map. When you have that for you, you're good, because you're gonna be able to just have your back to the wall, not worry about it, and then expand from there. He starts at the corner. He starts also similar to Krogar, in that corner of the map down there in the bottom right of the map, and he has C. He has to kill Imric, who is going to be struggling with everything else. You have to fight the dwarves early on, but then you get the Talon Snap ability, where every 50 turns you can delete a faction off the face of the campaign map. And trust me, that is so broken. That is absolutely broken. Clanation is just strong, hands down, absolute beast of a faction. You have Skaven weapons teams, you have Skaven technologies, you have Skaven coming out of every little hole you could imagine. And the next one I would also put as a really, really strong, very new, came to the table, very, very close memory. Clan Molder with Trot the Unclean, which I would also put as A tier faction to start off with. Easy campaign. Straight off the bat, easiest campaign I've played in the entire Mortal Empires world. Fastest campaign I've finished, and by far the most fun I've had with in a campaign. You got the Flesh Laboratory, so you got really strong monsters early on. Your economy is going to be fine. You're going to get tier 4 settlements very quickly. You're going to be expanding rather rapidly. You're going to have help with abominations by turn 11. Do I need to say anything else? Apart from that, you got Packmasters for days. You get cheaper monsters and all the fun you can imagine. Plus, you get help it. So again, strong economy, strong start. You are kind of at the north of Kislev, might be an issue, but you should be able to deal with Kislev and the Empire relatively easily. Trot himself is just a powerhouse, an absolute powerhouse, and your economy will be fine. After Trotty Boy, I think I finished all the Skaven. Oh no, the fun ones are gone. And this is where I think we got to last time. No, I think last time we finished also Luther Harkon and the Tomb Kings. So the Vampire Coast and the Tomb Kings. Let's start with Luther Harkon, the Awakened. I would say once again, as you can see over here, we have most of the Lustria Super Bowl between A and D. Okay, Luther Harkon starts in a semi-strong position, but at the same time, I would say he's better off than Teclis. Because he starts with the Awakened. It's a much more defensible settlement and is a little bit more to the corner rather to the center, but still, same issues that you always face. And then your economy is not that strong because you're the Vampire Coast and you need to be killing everything around you and pillaging and the such. But definitely a fun campaign if you want to play it. It has really fun mechanics, and of course you can never go wrong with a Necrofex Colossus Doomstack, which, if you want, I would highly recommend going with Count Noctilus, which I'll put in the same region, mostly because you start in the Galen's Graveyard, and that is just in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, and you have to expand by going somewhere else. Now you have options. You can go either to Estalia, you can go to Alt 1, I really don't recommend it, or you can go to Lustria. So I would say they're in the same wavelength. Cannot say the same about the Pirates of Sartosa. I would say they're C tier starting location. Their economy is not the best. You have to fight against Tilia, and then eventually the Skaven will also attack you. And if Aked Claw turns his eye on you, early campaign, you are not in a good place. You have the Border Princes, which get pissed off at you, and sometimes, if you're really unlucky, the Orcs decide to come and pay you a visit. Keep in mind, anti-player bias is insane, so Grimgor will ignore Torgrim to come kill you. Grimgor and Torgrim will be best buddies, so they can come kill you. And I mean, you're dead already, so they're really going to try and target you down. You're a dead mermaid hybrid thing. But keep in mind, not a fun campaign. Talking about interesting campaigns, now Silostra Darfin, she starts in a really interesting position. She starts to the north of the Lustria Super Bowl, and she does have some unique campaign mechanics. She does have interesting campaign mechanics, but she's also quite relatively weak. So I'd put her at C, because you do have Marcus Wolfheart below you, and you have Mr. Mazdamundi, Mr. Mobility Scooter right on top, and he is definitely not going to give you an easy time. You're going to get your ass spanked repeatedly all day long. With that said, boys and girls, we've finished the Vampire Coast, and guess who comes next? He of many names, the imperishable Cetra, the King of Kings, ruler of the Hacker. Oh, I'm not going to say his entire name. No, Cetra is going to be a really difficult one for me, because the Tomb Kings do not have an economy. Straight and plain, they do not have an economy. They don't classify as everyone else. For me, Cetra is a really easy start, so I'm going to put him as an A. Why is he an easy start? Because if you take it slow, you cannot play him. I cannot stress this enough. You cannot play Cetra as any of the other factions. No, do not even consider it. There is no reason why to. Cetra and all the Tomb Kings, they play differently. You need to be slow, you need to be methodical. But within the first few turns of the campaign, you can take up all the way north. You can start beating the Greenskins, you can start beating the Errantry Knights, and all you need to do is just get the 2 lords, 2 armies with the research. I have made a guide for that, and start spamming skeletons, skeleton archers, and you are gonna be good. Keep your kitty alive, your Sphinx, and Chameleon War Sphinx, and put Cetra on a Chimerian War Sphinx. The Chariot of the Gods is absolutely beast, but the Chimerian War Sphinx just animation just looks so cool. I mean, who does not love cats? That's yeah, my cat is sleeping in front of the heater. I realized there is a heater going. So keep that in mind. And yeah, I think Cetra is a very strong A because, well, frankly, he is Cetra the Imperishable. The campaign can get a little bit shaky when you need to expand, but in early game, I'd say he's very, very strong. First 20 turns, you're going to be in a really, really good place. After Cetra, we get Arkan the Black. And Arkan the Black, I would put him slightly below Cetra. Not because he's Arkan. I mean, I would love to, but that means I'll put him in E. Mostly due to, you do start in a corner, which is nice, but you also start in a corner in a situation where everything else is against you. The Dwarfs will attack you. The Knights Errantry will deliver Bretonnian Bathwater to you non-stop. And you do not like Bretonnian Bathwater. He is not as strong as Cetra, but I would say that he's very close. I mean, okay, I have an A and a B. For me, Cetra and all the Tomb Kings are somewhere between an A and a B. Okay, keep that in mind. I would say that Cetra is stronger than Arkan, so Cetra gets to go to be an A, whereas Arkan gets to be a B in this situation. It's not very big difference. Like, I cannot make a million tabs like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. You know, I cannot make all of that because otherwise it would just be too much. But I would put Arkan there. And Court of Libaras, I would say she's almost as strong as Cetra as well. But again, similar wavelength as Arkan. She does get in a really nice spot to start off with. You have a relatively good area, but you do start with a minor settlement. You do start in a really annoying situation when you have the vampires and you have the Tomb Kings. Sorry, not Tomb Kings. You have lizards, and you have more vampires, and then Skaven and Skaven and Skaven is coming out of the wazoo. So you're gonna have a little bit of a harder time, but overall she's relatively good. Then as a faction leader herself, she doesn't give you the best buffs, so I'd put her there. On the other hand, the Granddaddy, I don't know why I'm putting him as an I don't know why. He decided to go where he is. I mean, we know the lore. We know exactly the lore. That's not the issue. What I mean is he finds himself near Nagaron. He is in a corner, smashed against the wall. You have Nagaron. You have the Sisters of Twilight now coming to get you. You have Negarites coming to get you. You have Clan Rictus, which Clan Rictus as an AI is really fucking strong. I must say that. When you play them, they're weak. So you are not going to be having fun. Because you're back against the wall, because you have a relatively decent starting location in terms of positioning, I would say he's okay-ish, but he's not going to be a fun campaign to play. End game, he's going to be fun, but early game is going to be a struggle, and you need to make informed decisions before doing anything, otherwise you're going to lose your campaign. And yeah, it's not gonna be the best. Finally, the old world factions, and we start with the one, with the only, the man who did not give us consent. Wait, that sounded wrong. Well, he gave us consent to be on this list. Emperor Core France, which I would put as an A-tier faction. You go, why? Emperor Core France finds himself in a really lovely position called the Reichland. The Reichland is a very rich region where you can have walled mountain passes very early on. Within 5 turns you have 5 or 6 settlements, and you do have an economy which is slow burning at the start, but it does expand quite aggressively later on. And you're the Empire and you're Karl Franz. You get it to be in a position, mostly due to the elector count mechanic, where you can start confederating all the other Empire factions really fast and really easily, without much of an issue, much of a hassle. If you manage the politics of it, you're going to be in a really good place. Strong faction, strong campaign effects, strong faction-wide bonuses. Karl Franz is going to be good. Now, with Karl Franz, you also have the same starting position with Volkmar the Grim. And Volkmar the Grim is an interesting one. I wouldn't put him as an A tier start, but rather a B tier start, but I didn't put in the same logo twice. Why would I put Volkmar down there? Flagellants. That's it. Fudgerins suck. They don't die, but apart from that, they suck. They're really bad. So there you go. That's the reason. But now, the one, the only, the golden boy, interested in golden showers, day and night. The one who went to Estalia, and he welcomed us there with his open, loving embrace and golden, toothy smile. Gelt. Balthazar Gelt. Balthazar Gelt is an interesting campaign start. You start with Fort Sol, which helps you protect yourself from angry dwarves, angry orcs, and everything else down there. You have vampires to deal with, which are more of a problem than with Karl, as in they're much more imminent positioning. So I would put Gelty Boy down here. He is something you shouldn't have much trouble with, but you're going to have some trouble with. And I think that's the best way to describe it. With the Hans Marshal, it's self-explanatory. You start with a small tier settlement, maximum tier 3. You cannot recruit everything you want. You're waiting on the campaign mechanic to give you troops. You are stuck in the Lastria Super Bowl, and you are fucked. You are fucked. Yeah. I don't know why he's down there. I don't know why he decided to go there. Scottish people have interesting tastes, I guess. With that said, I think that's all of the Empire, and hopefully we'll have more very soon. Luther is still shooting. And now to the Dwarfs. And first guy is Thorgrim Grudgebearer, and at the same time Gombrindle, because you know what? These two are just very similar. Gombrindle has really good mechanics. Thorgrim has really good mechanics. They're both very good. I would say Gombrindle is slightly stronger than Thorgrim, but not by much. And I would even dare to say they are an S tier faction if it wasn't for the bloody Grimgor. So I would put them down to A. Why would I say bloody Grimgor? If you do not kill Grimgor within 20 turns, he is going to be such a pain in the ass. You are going to be in so much pain and so much suffering. I made a guide on how to kill him really fast. But genuinely speaking, it is an absolute nightmare scenario if you do not kill Grimgor. But if you kill Grimgor, and it's very easy to kill Grimgor if you know what you need to do, you're going to be fine. You're going to have a slow burning economy that grows exponentially as you're going along. You start with a really strong settlement, which also you don't need to build walls for. You just need to build the provincial capital and upgrade it, and it's going to be really strong as you're going along. And you have dwarven stubbornness on your side. Dwarves do not die. Dwarves are strong. Dwarves are absolute beasts of war, and I love them to bits. Definitely recommend starting. Cannot say the same for the next guy, which is Belegar Ironhammer. And Belegar, either very low C or very high D, but I would say D because of his faction mechanic where you get, I think, 200% extra maintenance cost for his unit, if I remember right, or 100%. It is something 100 or 200%, I forget. But essentially speaking, it is such a difficult situation you find yourself in because you cannot have many armies. You are in a really bad place where you have orcs, you have wood elves, you have the border princes, which usually are okay with you. Sometimes the Empire decides to attack, and then you have Skarsnik coming in from the north through the mountains and beating you up, as well as the Beastmen. They do tend to come and fuck shit up when they see you weak. It's not an easy campaign. It's definitely fun, but not an easy campaign. I would highly recommend playing him once you're a bit more experienced with the game. But as a starting new player, I would pick something from the S, A, or B tier to get used to the game mechanics. Because goddamn. And then Karakadrin, which I would say they are an A tier as well. You do start face to face with the vampires early on, but you do have the mechanics to deal with them. You have Slayers, which are ridiculously strong on Ongrim, and they are going to be really useful to deal with all the vampire shenanigans. You start in the mountains, and expansion is slow, but with the underway you should be able to manage. You do have some orcs to deal with. just on top of you, and then you can also now with the new region expand slightly in the lowlands on the other side of the mountains, where you can have a few settlements to just have extra, buildings. I would say he's not as strong as the other dwarves like Thorgrim and Gumbrindel, slightly weaker, but at the same time, genuinely speaking, the guy is fun to play with. And I mean, come on, who does not want to have a mohawk? That he gets points, 10 extra points for just having a mohawk, and such a big one, such a good one. I believe that is the dwarves. Dwarves done, and now we go to the best of the best. He's not the best. Grimgor is definitely not the best, but I would say he does have a really fun campaign, and I would put him as an A-tier campaign. You can confederate all the other orcs really quickly. They did an amazing job on his campaign mechanics. You just beat the other faction leaders and you automatically grow. On legendary though, it is going to be a bit of a problem. Okay, maybe putting him in A is not that good, but a B tier is definitely worth. He is fun to play. You have to deal with the orcs. The wall mechanic is just absolutely mental. I really highly recommend new players to play with him on normal or hard, just to have fun with the wall mechanic. Just orcs are just fun always in the Warhammer scenarios. They're just funny, they're funky, and they're full of flavor. Fortunately, not the strongest faction in the game, and they don't have an economy of any sort except from raiding and pillaging and breaking and destroying and killing and murdering and everything and such. Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe him. But actually, talking about strong orcs, we can say the Bloody Hands. And of course, the Bloody Hands, we are going to talk about the one, the only, Wazak, the Great Green Prophet. He is so much fun to play with. So much fun to play with. Your savage orcs are beast. They are strong, they are fun, and you get strong magic. You get in a slightly safer positioning than Grimgor, because you're a bit to the side. You can confederate Grimgor and have Grimgor as a meat shield, see him die over and over again. So definitely, fun campaign, highly recommended as well. Again, he's not as strong as all of the other A factions, but he's better than Grimgor, Altari, and Negrite. He's better than those, because if you have a plan, you should be fine. You guys might be thinking I have a bias to orcs, giving them such a high tier positioning. They are fun to play, and they are strong. They are very strong. Cannot say the same about the next one. The next one is Skarsnik. He is... I would put him as an E, but he has the wall. No, I'm putting him as an E. You cannot recruit orcs. You can only recruit goblins early campaign till you get Karak 8 Peaks. You can only recruit orcs from Karak 8 Peaks. Like, come on, you need black orcs. I mean, you can go around stomping with Arachnarok spiders, but those are N tier. Doomdiver Capitals are N tier. Early game, he's not fun. You start near the Empire. Karl Franz will not like you. You need to go through dwarves and dwarves and dwarves and more dwarves, and then some princes, and then more dwarves. It's not fun. There is a way, I believe, to get to Karak 8 Peaks on turn 7 and beat it on turn 7. I've seen someone do it. I think 7 or 8, actually. I'm not sure. But it is not fun. It's genuinely not fun. So he gets to sit down there pretty with good old Nakai. Grum, the Punch, the hungriest goblin, biggest goblin. He is a fun campaign, but he starts in the middle of Bretonnia, so we're gonna put him with most of the Lustrian Super Bowl, because he starts surrounded by Bretonians, and they ain't happy with him at all. You need to be very aggressive with him. You need to have a plan, but if you don't have a plan, and if you're just winging it, you dead. You're very dead. You're very dead. And finally, the Bone Rattlers. The Bone Rattlers have, let's me pronounce it right, Azak the Slaughterer as their leader. You do start in a really good position. You start in the mountains over Karakadrin. You do have positions to expand to. You don't have that many enemies starting off. You possibly can go and just burn Kislev down, or you could go and kill Skaven, or you could just go and kill orcs. But again, not the strongest campaigns. I would put him the same with Grimgor. you are going to suffer a lot, especially when Chaos Invasion comes, and you're going to need to have strong armies by then. But overall, it's a fun campaign and relatively good for new beginners, new starting people. Oh boy, we have 10 minutes left to do it under an hour. I think we can manage. The next are straight off the bat. Wulfric gets to be placed in D, and Trog gets placed in E. Wulfric gets placed in a D position because he's Wulfric. He's actually very strong. He's a very strong fighter, and you do not start that far north. You can start expanding really quickly. Economy-wise, you're shit, but you're going to be fine once you get the true ever-chosen trait from beating Chaos, but you need to survive the first 100 turns with him. He's like Imbric. You can do something good with him, but overall, it's not going to be fun. And you need Mammoths. With Trog, do I need to explain it? He is hungry, and that's it. That's all there is. After the Norskins, very brief, very short introduction and exit of the Norskins, we shall talk about Khorne. Khorne, for me, is an S-tier faction. Why? You're going to suffer a little bit at the start from Norscan invasions, but overall, you're going to have 3 armies very short in the campaign. You're going to be able to confederate all the other Bretonnians really fast through the campaign mechanics, through the research. You're going to expand really fast because of that, and once you have secured all of Bretonnia, you are in a really strong position. You have strong units, strong campaign mechanic of not having supply lines, and that is the most important thing. Not having supply lines is so powerful in this game. You can have really, really strong armies and as many of them as you want, and you will not be penalized for having hundreds of Bretonnian armies roaming the campaign map. The problem is when we start talking about Alberic de Bordelot. I don't know what he does. He's just a generic lord with a name. They just placed him there. He's not very strong. I mean, he's Bretonnian, so he... I guess we should put him in a B. I acted hastily there. We'll put him in a B. He's very strong because he's Bretonnian, but that's all he has. He himself is not notable compared to Leon Kerr. Leon does not die. Ever. He is essentially immortal. He regenerates. He doesn't take damage. He flies a hippogriff. Do I need to say more? The Fae lady, the Lady of the Fae, the Cascasson, I would put as an A-tier faction, mostly because as strong as she is, and she has all the benefits and buffs of Bretonnia, you are going to be facing off against the most brutal of rats and brutal of factions. You're going to be fighting an Ikitclaw, and then against all the Wood Elves, which will attack you, because they attack everyone. They hate everyone. Even though you start slightly positive with them, they will attack you. They will burn you. And you will also get attacked by Count Noctilus, oftentimes, again, anti-player bias, and you have to deal with the Orcs relatively early on. So you're going to be in a really interesting situation where strong faction, strong potential, you should be fine, but it's still not the best position. You are with the other super strong factions, but in not so ideal locations to start off with. And finally, my lady, Rapunzelionis. Rapunzel, I would say she is also an A-tier faction. She's very easy to play with in campaign. She's very fun, but she starts in the deserts of Araby, the coast of Araby. I've just done a tutorial on her, a guide on the first few turns. You can take out Arkan, the black, really early on, and that will give you a strong start. But apart from that, you don't get to be an S-tier faction, mainly because you are in Araby and you are away from the other Bretonnians. You cannot really consolidate your power with them very easily. You do have the errantry factions, which you can confederate early on, but they're not going to give you the same buffs as if you are in Bretonnia and you are not Leon Cole. And that is the Bretonnians. Now, oh my god, I forgot Tehenhauin. I forgot Tehenhauin. Oh, I knew I forgot the Lizard Boy. I am so sorry. I just realized I forgot the Lizard Boy. I am so sorry, Cal, because I know you were waiting for this guy. I am putting Tehenhauin as a tier C tier. Tehenhauin, just going back to the lizards for a second. I just realized now, I'm so sorry. Tehenhauin Tehenhauin is a very strong lord with regards to to killing Skaven. He has very good skinks, but it stops there. Like, he has an interesting campaign mechanic, but it feels empty, it feels rushed, it feels meh. He comes with, in the DLC, with Ikit Claw, but Ikit Claw definitely got the love there, not him. He does have a unique unit which he brought in, which is the Laser Beam Boy, but the Stegodon with Engine of the Gods. But again, early game, you start in a city surrounded by enemies, and it's not going to be very easy to do so, to manage the campaign very easily from there. C, because you should be able to. It's last year's Super Bowl. I knew I was missing someone. Like, it kept bugging me that I was missing. Not bugging, did not bugger me. But yeah, Tehenhauin gets to be placed in a C tier. Now, with Tehenhauin done as well, we can move on to the last three factions. Now, Taliesin gets to be a C faction as well. But you're like, but Linksy, Taliesin is not that strong. Orion is not that strong as a faction leader. He's a good fighter. You start in a really good position because you have all the Wood Elves around you. But I would say most of them are in this situation. I would put, I'm going to try and pronounce this properly, Dertu Aguilon. Aguilon as a B faction, because Dertu gives such big buffs to his trees. And I would say the same with Draika, the Wargrave of Woe, Wargrove of Woe, because they give such strong buffs to their trees. But then the Sisters and Taliesin and Orion and Sisters of Twilight, they get to be placed as C, because, well, their economy is slightly shit here. Doesn't matter the position where you start in as the Wood Elves, you have strong trees to defend yourself. You can jump to other trees. You can easily get the other trees on your side. And their campaign mechanic is similar to the Tomb Kings in the sense they're completely different from the rest of they're playing their own. When you're playing as the Wood Elves, you're playing your own campaign, so it's very different. But economy wise is really strong. Really important to note that Aguilon and Wargrave of Woe are much stronger because they get cheaper treemen, and treemen are broken. I would even say that Wargrave Draika is stronger than Dertu, because one, she confederates Dertu really early on. Two, her trees are better because they're angrier, and angry trees, as we all know, are the thing. After the Wood Elves, which got a very brief mention, but as always, we need to rush a little bit, try and finish it in an hour. We are going to speak about the Vampire Counts this time. The Vampire Counts are an interesting faction. They are very strong, and I'm going to put Manfred's as an A-tier faction. You are a ridiculously strong lord early on, and you have very strong economy because you essentially get 3 armies. And again, that is by turn 18, I believe. You get 3 armies of skeletons spawn, you get necromancers, you get really strong mechanics. They play in their own style. I really recommend watching Legend of Total War on this, because he does play with them so effectively. It's amazing. And Wounds of That One Them is a must. And I would say that the von Karsteins get also to be, I would say, slightly weaker than Manfred, but I would put them also in an A tier, because you have, Sylvania has Manfred and you have Helmengorst, well, as the von Karsteins you get Isabella and you get Vlad. Vlad is really strong, and so is Isabella. Endgame, they are way stronger than Manfred. They beat Manfred's ass. The reason why Manfred has an easier start, because he starts with Castle Drakenhof, and you start with a tier 3 provincial capital. That is going to really help you, okay? With the von Karstens, you need to capture Castle Tempelhof really early on, and you need to contain Castle Drakenhof, Sylvania, to be able to do so. So rather than expanding, you're going to be focusing on consolidating your power before you even start. So that's the early game bias. With regards to the borough region, the poor borough region, right? They are not as strong. I would say they're in C tier, as in early game difficulty, and generally their campaign. You start in Bretonnia, you start surrounded by enemies. It is not, you know what, actually D. it is a fun campaign because you get free necromancers. Essentially, you get free skeletons. It's fun, springing winds of that everywhere. But you're going to get bullied to hell and back. The one positive thing you have, something which I didn't do in my campaign recently, is that you can confederate the Red Duke. You can assimilate him into your forces. But keep in mind, you have Leon Kerr, which needs to die really early on, otherwise you're dead. You have orcs that hate you, Empire that hates you, elves that will come and attack you. It is not a fun place. It's almost easier to pack up your bags and migrate to Sylvania and settle there. With that, we come to the worst of the worst campaigns, and that is the Beastmen. I don't know why I have their two symbols, but the Beastmen, you have Khazrak One-Eye, who starts in Estalia. You get Malagor the Dark Omen, who starts in the Southern Badlands, and you get Morgrul the Shadowgave, who starts in Northland. What do they have different? Khazrak starts with Minotaurs, Malagor starts with a Chaos Giant, or a Giant in this case, and Morgrul starts with Chaos Spawn. They are all really shit. You don't have an economy, you don't have any campaign mechanics to help you, you do not have any friends, no one likes you, no one wants you there, and good luck if you survive more than 5 turns. Finally, Chaos, and I'm gonna put Chaos also in this category E. No one likes you. All three Chaos Lords start in the same position. You have Archeon, you have Kolek, and you have Sigvald the Magnificent. You're gonna have a hard time with any of them. The easiest one would be Kolek, and you're gonna be able to survive a bit longer. And if you survive the initial hump with them, you're going to be fine, because then you recruit Shagot Doomstack, Dragon Ogre Shagot Doomstack. But again, it's not a fun early campaign mechanic. It is very difficult. You need to, as one small mistake, even on normal or hard difficulty, you lose, okay? And that is not something you want to see. We know that both the Beastmen and Chaos are being reworked for Warhammer 3. If not Beastmen, if not earlier, because now there is talks that the Beastmen might be the next DLC for Warhammer 2 before Warhammer 3. But I think that is the verdict on them. They are fun-ish, potentially fun-ish, but not in the early game. The early game is just a nightmare of fighting for survival with weaker units than anything that everyone else has around you. Everyone has new toys to play, you're still stuck in Warhammer 1. With that said, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep in mind, you can tell me whatever you want and however you feel about this. This is my personal view on which factions have the easiest or hardest starts, the strongest or the weakest faction mechanics, and we're talking always in the first 30-50 turns of the campaign. That's the early game for me. You guys, we can have a discussion about this, a civil discussion in the comments. I am looking forward to your comments. I apologize that it took me so long to do a proper full tier one, as I had started it. I already have a video which I will probably put on unlisted on the first half. I had done it with Essence, which is a really good friend of mine, but I thought it was about time I do a full tier list for Warhammer 2 factions and starting locations. If you guys do enjoy it and want me to do an even more in-depth one by faction, discussing each faction in greater detail, please let me know, and I will be more than happy to do so. I could also do one for the Vortex if this gets 1,000 views in the first day or so. Well, let's say first 2-3 days, because videos like this are not that discoverable. But boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. I will be streaming later on tonight. Thank you all for the subscriptions I've been getting recently. We are very close to 1,000, and I am definitely a happy Linksy. So, and I mean, you guys made it happen, so thank you for that. Stay safe out there, and I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. Bye bye.